What was that community like growing up in?
Oh, Curious Joel in my day was quite large enough for it to be a bustling little microcosm, but at the same time, it wasn't what it is today, which is almost um, it's unrecognizable to me because it's grown a lot and it's become very overdeveloped. In my days, it was very hilly, um, and there were these like four family homes in the neighborhood that were built exactly alike, just different colors. So it had a kind of a specific charm where we'd all spend a lot of time on these cul-de-sacs, outside, on the lawn,
Mm.
playing. And families were so large that the parents simply couldn't play this kind of active role in taking care of us. So growing up was rather laissez-faire. We were just running around through shortcuts. And because we had no screen culture, it was running around and playing for hours on end,
Yeah.
just like until it's dark outside. So there was a tremendous like ability for me to be a child that I feel has nurtured into me a curiosity. Yet at the same time, there were a lot of things we were not allowed to do. And we did have the Holocaust in our world in a very interesting way. It was present and it was not. It was stories told dramatically of like grandparents having gone through these horrible things. Yet at the same time, we were so sheltered from violence. We grew up so totally away from that that to me it was like a grandfather was in a war and we were in this idyllic American like place away from everything. Yet we didn't watch TV, so we didn't know of American culture. So there was a lot of boredom mixed with a lot of creativity. And for me, that had two faces. On the one hand, I felt so engaged in my ability to explore myself. My mind has always been like a theater, and it allowed that to be so fully realized with all the friends spending hours making plays, doing this, doing that. On the other hand, I was starved for stimulation. I was starved for the forbidden, and that was tormenting at times. It's also that Curious Joel has a certain kind of small town vibe of like, what will people say? And keeping up appearances that when I was young, I was oblivious to. And as I got older, it became a source of a lot of anguish for me because I struggled to live up to it. And I experienced my friends as adapting to it and as almost like growing into it. It was a point of pride for all of the women, the girls, the young girls to become mature girls, to blow dry their hair, to tuck in their blouse, their skirt just so. You start to wear tights that has a seam in the back, and the seam has to be just right. In fact, I remember my mother telling the story of uh, a family that had a son of age for marriage, and the matchmaker proposed a girl, and they went to see the girl, and her seam in the back was all crooked and out of place,
Yeah.
and they were like, then they knew that it's not going to happen. And when my mother told that story, I thought to myself, oh my, I'm looking at my seam and I'm thinking, well, that this is this I'm in trouble. So I did have a really big challenge with what I would describe as the female space, which felt as very strong expectations towards being demure, being represented with a certain kind of modesty. And I don't mean modesty as in covered up. I couldn't care less what I was wearing. I mean modesty as in drawing into yourself, containing a part of yourself, not being fully expressive with your full self. What we call Eitelkeit, which I found to be a difficult, like I couldn't live up to it, and also to be stifling. Really made me feel like I resented being a woman. So there, there was that, and yet I'm just going to say one more thing about growing up in Curious Joel that I think of in hindsight. I had no sense of myself as a sexualized, like, male gaze person. And that was the other side of the coin of growing up in this female space where you had to be with women only. There are benefits and there are, of course, drawbacks. One of the benefits that I could see once I left the community was I didn't experience the male gaze throughout my entire adolescence,
Yes.
and that was extremely innocent and charming, and um, it it was an adjustment to realize what it's like to be in the wider world where that doesn't hold true. So it's a complicated world, as you said in the beginning. I feel very strongly it's a complicated world that for me growing up there had a lot of benefits. I think it gave me some skills that I carry into life that make my life meaningful and joyous. It connected me to my Jewishness and my femininity and my motherhood in a way that I cherish. Yet at the same time, I also found like I couldn't breathe.
Today, do you embrace the male gaze?
Well, I feel like I have to speak to the male gaze in a sense, in the sense that my value is defined by appearance in a way that it wasn't in Curious Joel. Of
Mhm.
course, the girls in Curious Joel were obsessed with dieting and they were obsessed with their weights, but that was different from the sense of if I want to be a successful YouTuber, I have to keep up appearances. And that I see as being a product of being a woman in a world where a woman is judged by her appearances to a very strong degree. Like you have to look presentable, and it's not just defined by how women would define being presentable, but it's it comes out of the male gaze that you have to be also attractive. You don't have to just look nice, you also have to be attractive.
Yes.
And I've accepted it. I've like made peace with it. I'll do it. Like, how am I going to be aging in front of the camera? I don't know, but I'll try. It's like, what can I do?
I mean, the beauty of what you've accomplished in your life to date is that, as I've said at the top of the show, you have not chosen a particular narrative. Like, look at this community I've come from, how strict, how strident, but more so you're trying to explain it to other people. Yet you want to maintain that modernity, which you've worked so hard on. So when you go back to Curious Joel, to be with your family, to take care of your mom, do you dress down at all?
Well, right now, actually, should I show you what I'm wearing?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm wearing this dress that comes to here
Yes.
and it goes to the floor. It's like a pleated skirt. So, as I told you at the head of the show, I am supposed to go visit my mother in the hospital right after this. So I'm already dressed for it. So I have a friend who is from the community as well. She's also from the same community. And I actually asked her, I took a video of my dress and I said, do you think I can go to my mother like this? Last week, I was called in emergency to go to my mother and I was wearing red nail polish. I would never go to her with red nail polish. I actually did this color because I know she's in the hospital and I need to go often. But I went and it was fine. So I usually make choices that I try to be respectful, but assertive. Like I try to walk that line where I'm not trying to scandalize or upset her, but also I'm not trying to end up shielding her to the point that it um like infantilizes her, and also it really harms my ability to feel connected to her. So I'm always agonizing over what to wear. So like I told my friend, I'm wearing this dress already. It comes to the floor, it's almost seamless, but my elbows show. It's three
Yes.
quarter sleeves. Can I wear it? And we're like, and anyway, I ended up putting a sweater in my bag, which is at the door. So in the end, I'm not going to go like this. So it's always a line I'm trying to walk. I really, really want my family to. It's funny because I'm 40 years old and I still want to be seen for me,
Yeah.
So every time I put on that sweater, I take away that opportunity, but I also have to appreciate that they cannot see me fully, and that is what it is, and I accept that. So where is the line? Where can they accept seeing me more so I don't feel like I'm in a costume? And yet, it's not gone so far that it feels just intentionally provocative or that is upsetting, especially if my mother is not well. I really don't want to upset her. So, like, I wouldn't wear red nail polish to see her, but I was asked to come from 1 minute to the next. Someone had to be with her in the emergency room, and it was fine. I
So,
think it was fine.
so my father was an Orthodox rabbi. He died at a very young age. He was 61 years old of a heart attack. When he died, my mother felt very strongly that she had to become the parent that would bring me back to frumkeit, to religiosity. And at some point in time, I said to her, "Mom, I love you very much, and I really, really appreciate what you're trying to do here, but you need to stop because
Yeah.
if you don't, it's going to create a huge separation between us. I am
Yeah.
who I am. I want you to see me for who I am, as you said before. And God bless my mother's soul. God bless who she was. She stopped. And she was
Wow.
wonderful. She was wonderful throughout the rest of her life. When you go to see your mom, when you see your dad, do they embrace you? Fredela, you're here. We know who you are. Is there that? Or is it, I just love you for who you are?
No, it's complicated. I so appreciate what you're saying because my son, interestingly, I mean, sadly, is struggling with the same thing because his father is also Hasidic, and we talk about this, where a lot of what's happening for both of us is don't ask, don't tell. We just don't really talk about it. Um, and I don't know how comfortable my parents are talking about it. I don't want to push it. So, like, for instance, I think it's pretty obvious that I'm not Orthodox, and I've been very clear about that. And yet, my parents wanted me to come for I think it was Simchas Torah. It was a 2-day yontiv or 3-day yontiv. I couldn't come for all three, and I said, "Listen, I can come for two, and um, I don't know if that's okay with you." And they were like, "Well, we're going to ask the Dayan," and the Dayan came back, which is the legal um, expert, Jewish legal issues, and he came back saying that it's not allowed to go visit a sick person by train, but you are allowed to go by Uber. So my parents were like, "We'll pay for the Uber." So like that, like you're paying $100 for the Uber, but what can I say? Like, should I spell it out that I'll gladly go if you prefer, if you feel better that I go with Uber, but I would do other things on the train. So is it necessary? I wouldn't want to like push it too much into their faces. Um, so it's definitely not that kind of environment where I can say, like you said, Avrum, you have to accept me for who I am. In fact, this was a very like painful moment for me. A lot of the time I'll spend like reading to my mother because she doesn't watch anything, so she's very bored. So especially if it's Yantiv or Shabbos, it's a holiday, so I'll read to her. She likes when she's read to, and she wanted me to read a story. And I'm like looking through it, and we're like, let's not find a story that's about death because that scares us both.
Mm-hmm.
And I find a story, oh, it's about the Holocaust. It's like about Sukkot. It's fine. It's not gonna scare either of us. And I'm going into the story with that perspective, and I don't realize that it's a story of someone who was moisin nefesh for Sukkot. Someone who put their life on the line to observe Sukkot. And as I'm reading about this person risking their life, I start to cry, and I am I'm fighting tooth and nail because I feel like my mother is watching me cry, and she's like, "My Freidela, she's coming back." And I'm like, "Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry." And I am like stopping to read and it's just pitch quiet in the room, and it's like it's coming out of me. It's coming out of me. I am just, and I pick it up again, and it's again this person who is so passionate about their Yiddishkeit that they are they are going through incredible lengths while in the Holocaust, and I'm touched by it because I do believe their faith is getting them through, even though they're risking their lives, and I'm so touched. But at the same time, I know my mother is like, in her mind, she's already all right. She's coming back. I can see it. And I'm like, I'm giving her false hope. This is a disaster. I don't want to do that. So I don't have the luxury that comes from an open conversation
Yes. Yes.
that really gives you the opportunity to set expectations, and that creates that difficulty of where a lot has to happen through clothing, through mannerisms, to set reasonable expectations, to set lines without being able to spell it out, which is a gift. I think your mother gave you a gift of giving you the opportunity to express yourself, and also accommodating that, and also for you, your courage to like say it,
Well, thank
it's,
you. My father, on the other hand, again, God bless his soul, he wasn't one who would face very often what was in front of him having to do with me. So the last 8, 9 years of his life, we had a very difficult and strained relationship with very little talk. By the
mm,
time he passed away, we had never spoken about my choices in life at all.
yeah,
And we just became angry at one another. And quite frankly, I've had to work very hard since his passing to try to forgive him, to try to get to know him a little bit more. A mother is a mother, a father is a father very often.
yeah.
Mothers accept children differently than fathers, I think. What about your dad? Where is he at with you?
I think my dad is a person of the world, so that's very different because my father is a very successful business person. And so he's much more exposed. He's much more comfortable with who I am. I feel a lot more at ease with these fine lines. Like, I don't have a problem with red nail polish because I don't think it's going to scandalize him because he is so much more exposed to the world. My father built a very big organization in his lifetime. And so he's had a lot of contact with the world. My mother has led a much more sheltered life. But I have no desire to talk to either about my faith. In fact, I don't really talk on my YouTube channel about my faith, except I'm very clear that I'm not Orthodox. And I actually have been thinking, do I do a video and talk about it? Do I not? And I realize I don't really have a desire to talk to people about my faith. Maybe because faith is a much more, um, it's not relevant to my life in the way that it's relevant for other people. And I find it such a minefield that people get so hurt when you talk about it. If you have a conversation about it, they draw into these camps. There are atheists who are so dismissive of people who believe in the spaghetti monster, and then there are religious people who are so offended if you don't have the same immediate connection to, let's say, laws, halakha, the Bible. I see the whole spectrum of ways in which people think this is my belief and therefore it should be everyone else's, and anyone else is upsetting me. And so I don't have that same thing. So I don't have a desire to discuss it with anyone else. I feel like it's very personal, uh, like thing for me, how I feel about faith. So I don't talk to my parents about it. I don't talk to my viewers really about it, although maybe at some point that would change. It's more the practice part for me, the part where I don't practice certain Orthodox things that becomes so self-evident that I do feel I have to talk about it.
You know, Frida, when I first became irreligious, that's a term we'll use. I was about 20 or 21 years old. I remember being absolutely delighted, overwhelmed with happiness, going out on Yom Kippur into eating in a treif restaurant, non-kosher restaurant. Someone called me after Yom Kippur. They said, "No, it couldn't be. I'm pretty sure I saw you coming, but it couldn't be. I saw you coming out of a restaurant, but it was me." And it made me really, really happy because I felt like I could breathe. I felt like
Interesting.
I could embrace the colors, the tastes, all those things that I've always wanted to do. And it's interesting. You use some very interesting wording and explanations in terms of how you give over where you're at and where you're at today. One of which is a hunger. You even use it in this interview. So there's a hunger when I was growing up, and it wasn't a hunger for food because food was aplenty in your environment, but it was a hunger to know. And you said the most difficult thing about that hunger was you were hungry, the people around you were not.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah. I think a particular struggle for me was loneliness, not a loneliness for lack of friends. Thankfully, I grew up with a lot of friends. A loneliness for being able to share myself, my inner world, how I felt with others. And that came from feeling like everyone experienced contentment. And I was so starving for things that were not allowed. Like what was forbidden excited me so much. Like I get this why being sacrilegious, like eating treif on Yom Kippur, would become this almost trope for ex-religious Jews, because there is that sense of if it's not allowed, there is a growing intrigue. And I definitely always felt that. Um, this intrigue for what is off limits, for what you're not supposed to see, you're not supposed to have. Um, and it's just the forbidden itself, of course, makes it so much more enticing. I remember after I left well, actually, I was still in the community. One of the first movies I watched was Lindsay Lohan in the remake of Parent Trap. Have
Okay.
you watched it?
Yeah, I have. Yes.
Okay. And it has a scene where the twins, both of them acted by Lindsay Lohan, are sparring, they're fencing, and the musical track was Bad to the Bone. You know the song?
Bad to the bone. I know the song well. Yeah.
Bad to the Bone. And I watched that enough that I know the music. I know the music track to it, which is not usual for me. But that song struck me because it was like, wow, I felt that way as a kid. Like
Yeah.
when I was born, the nurses came around, gathered around, they were like, bad to the bone. And I was like,
That's
I
great.
felt bad to the bone, and not in a good way. We've glamorized in the wider world being badass, but I didn't feel bad in a good way. I felt bad in a way that made me feel like I should be something else than someone else. I sometimes say growing up in Kiryas was a little bit like being in the Raquettes as a pudgy, clumsy, not raquette figured person. Like imagine the Raquettes,
Yes.
the
Yes.
the so
Radio
I'm
City
used
City Music Hall, right? Yeah.
Radio City Music Hall, yeah. I'm used to speaking to international visitors on my tours, so I kind of never know what frame of reference people have. This
Yeah.
is very New York culture. But the Raquettes are these beautiful dancers who dance in sync, especially during the holiday time. Funnily, when I was Hasidic, a group of us went to the Raquettes. Must have been hilarious for us to sit there. I think it was, yeah. Um, but anyway, the Raquettes to me reflected this beauty, uh, refinement, the ballet, like control over yourself. It was something I admired, and I felt growing up like I saw that with all the female friends around me. They were like, "Wow, you're so mature, you're so walking like this, and you're talking like so." And I wanted to be that, and I felt like I had been shoved into this cast that I just couldn't perform. My body wouldn't be a rockette. I was like this oddball in the ensemble, and my experience was also like that people in the audience were waiting for me to perform and they were disappointed in me, and it was such a lonely feeling of feeling like the expectations around me were I should be one thing, but the reality was I wasn't, and I wanted like my my innate desire was to be something else, and that clash created a lot of loneliness, a sense of isolation that now when I go to the Hasidic community, I don't have, which I find really interesting. And it's funny, it's so cliched how society has become so obsessed with develop your true self and find your true self. And I kind of roll my eyes around it. Yet at the same time, the gift of not feeling like I have to be ashamed of my hunger for the world, that I am alone in my hunger for the world, that's been the biggest gift of my leaving. It's been allowing me to feel at peace. And, yeah.
What are those things that you've embraced, that you've used to satiate that hunger? As an example, excuse me, with me, I'm an artist. I'm a writer. I started a Jewish humanitarian organization, so I embraced Tikkun Olam instead of halacha. Those things really did satiate me. What did you use and find?
Something I really, really love that is a big part of my life is roaming the city, going to different neighborhoods,
Mhm.
trying to blend in. Like some neighborhoods, I'll be more successful than others. In Chinatown, no one speaks to me in Chinese, but in Brighton Beach, people speak to me in Russian. But
Yeah.
just being a part of the fiber of different cultures is just such a good feeling to see how different cultures are different and similar. I could take the train to a neighborhood and just roam around and see different people. I'm very, very like I have a I'll very quickly be talking to people and hearing stuff from them that is interesting, that is surprising, and just being charmed by different experiences and learning from people. That's like my favorite thing
It's lovely.
ever.
It's lovely. I am really taken by how articulate you are, and I don't mean that to sound any way like wow, you're speaking so well. Look at you. But I too have spent time in very Haredi, ultra right wing communities, and there is a drive towards people speaking Yiddish. In fact, Yiddish was your first language, and speaking in a way which is very similar to those who, as we say, many, many years got off the boat. So I've noticed within our discussion that sometimes you will bring up some Yiddish, and you have a very, very strong Yiddish accent. So my question to you really is, can you say a sentence to us in Yiddish? And did you have to work on developing your articulation?
Well, there are a few things. I can, of course, Yiddish is my first language. I think I code switch. I code switch. I don't have this like fetishizing my Yiddish accent or like, oh, let me hold on to it. Just is my accent naturally. I find even when I'm around Hasidim, I will speak like in a certain mode that is different. Like I'll embody a certain dismissive, was weißt du? It's like a kind
Exactly.
of like,
Yes.
it's a kind of like way that we're connecting with like, or kvetching that I'm like, wow, I don't actually talk like this in my everyday life, in my other world. Um, the crazy thing of creating videos, and I don't know if that's true for you because I don't know to which degree you edit yourself, but it's been that I have realized my mannerism of speaking. I interrupt myself in the middle of sentences. I have learned about all of the ways in which I don't speak like a robot,
Yes.
and all of these little quirks I have that I would have never known if I didn't make videos, and it's made me so self-conscious that I find that sometimes I'm in the middle of talking and I start to like internally become so obsessed with how I'm not finishing my sentences, I'm interrupting myself, I'm doing all the quirks that I do. I start one word and I go on to another word, whatever it is. It's funny. I used to be more confident, and there's a paradoxical thing that I've become less confident in my ability to be articulate since I do videos.
That happens, and that's why I don't watch my videos.
That's a good idea. I would say keep it that way.
It is and it isn't, because when you watch your own videos, you can pick up on the mistakes and the things that you need to fix. But it's such an interesting point that you're making, because I find when I meet yeshiva bachrim, guys I went to school with in yeshiva, Talmud school, that I do fall into that sort of yeshiva sprach. And I can even do this with my finger. It's just it's a good point that you're making,
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
don't speak like that, but when I'm with those guys, I do. Can you say something in Yiddish for us? How are you? Nice to be here.
Was machst du? Es ist moide dick du zu sein. So it's like, so a Geschmack, weißt? A ganze zu früh, jugig mich harem, nun setzt man sich herup, man schmiest, es ist saftig. It's like, yes, all morning I've been rushing around, but you sit down and you properly talk. So it's, I'll talk to you, it's Geschmack. If I talk to you in Yiddish, it would reflect this importance of talking and kibitzing and doing nothing except sitting around and yapping. Whereas if I were to say it in English, it would be, how are you, Avrum? It's so nice to be on your show,
So when people ask you how many languages do you speak, will you say bilingual, Yiddish and English?
I'll say 2. I find that I've never had, but especially as I acclimated to the secular world, I will not hide is not the right word. I will not bring up my Hasidish background. And when someone asks me, how many siblings do you have? I'm like, a lot.
Yes.
And they're like, but how many? I'm like, this is going to give me away. I'll be like at the same gym I've been since 2018. And I was so reluctant recently when they were talking to me to give away that I have so many siblings, because I felt like, oh, well, now I become the ex-Hasidic person. All this time I was a normal person. Yeah. So I try to not say that I speak Yiddish because I don't want to be in that box. And also because it doesn't come to my mind. That's the weird thing. I forget that part of my identity, like at a gym, why would it be relevant that I've lived differently for many years ago? So I don't bring it up, but technically I'm bilingual. My Yiddish is a little rusty. I do speak some Hebrew, and the big dream is to get totally fluent in Hebrew, but I don't know when that's going to happen. And as I get older, my language abilities are really declining.
So your trainer at the gym is not from a Satmar community, I'm assuming, right?
You guessed right.
Are you close with any of your siblings?
Some more than others. We live very different lives, My sister said to me at some point, text me. I don't care if it means texting me about your dog, who Oliver Shalom passed away.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. But that was like an effort from her to bridge the cultural gap, but it just articulated how big the cultural gap is between us. And that makes it difficult to be very close.
I'm assuming you love them. Do you like them as well?
I definitely don't dislike them. Yeah, no, I like them. They're awesome people. I have in my family, we have some really big personalities, and it's really interesting because I'm the 5th. I have some younger siblings that I never lived in one home with, right? Because there are all these siblings after me and I didn't know them. And to realize that, oh, these little babies have turned into such rich personalities, it's like, wow.
Yeah, you're very generous of spirit, Frida. I think that might be one of the things that probably helped you get through the struggle of yours because you're so grateful for what you have around you, and you're also very open-minded and impressed with different lifestyles, the way people live, and you're accepting of it. And with that, I want to start talking about the tours that you give, which really are predicated on. You see, I'm speaking Yiddish now, which are really predicated on come with me into Williamsburg, a very Satmar community, very ultra right wing, and I want to introduce you to some of the beauty of it. Before we get into that, though, I'm sitting here very curious about what your take is on of 15 children, of growing up in a very insular environment. You were one of the people, not the only person, who started to think outside of that box. You started to become intrigued by bubblegum. you know, you saw that sort of as a liberating component of your life. I'm going to chew it with vigor. People will like me more because I'm going to sell it. You tell great stories about your embracing of bubble gum, and you stole a book from school that you went on a trip to, brought it back, and you read it on your covers. Unfortunately, your parents found out, and you said you got a beating, which was painful to listen to. What is it about you? Maybe what is it about me that sees outside of that box that we're brought up in and then moves towards it as opposed to all those other people around you who don't?
That is such a great question because I think we, as the people who have left, are usually the narrative makers of our stories versus those who stay behind usually don't, or they make a different narrative, but oftentimes there is a general narrative we carry around, which is we were curious, we wanted to see the world, we saw through the maybe the old fashioned views, and we came to understand um, there's more to the world. And I often wonder about that because I think there's probably a combination of things, of personality, of a way of seeing the world, and circumstances. Like my mother said to me at some point, your mother-in-law ruined your life. Now, I don't want to bash my mother-in-law at all. That's not the point of it. But my mother believed that my mother-in-law encouraged the divorce, and therefore my marriage fell apart, and therefore I left. And I was surprised by that narrative. I was like, that's not what happened in my narrative at all. That's not at all um, why I left. And also, my life isn't ruined, by the way. But that was a long time ago that we had that conversation, and it hit me that to some degree she has a point, that there were circumstances in my marriage that opened a door for my personality to express itself. So I think there are a lot of different things that go on when someone makes such a radical departure. It's essentially like immigrating, but in a way that is so much more stressful with a relationship with families. Um, I think, I don't know for you, and it would be interesting to hear what it is that makes you more likely to leave this world while so many stay. I think for me, it was a lot about, I don't think I have the same kind of tribalism that some people have that keeps them so connected. And I
Mhm.
also don't have a certain kind of faith. Seth, you can go. Sorry, my apologies. My son is trying to leave at like the tip of his toes.
It
He's like sneaking around.
adds to the authenticity of the podcast.
Yeah, it's fine. He's like gonna take him an hour to get out the door. This poor thing. He's been sneaking around here. Sorry, I interrupted myself. But it's a good question. It's something I think about. And I think one last thing, maybe I don't tend to make connections that I see other people make. Like, um, when someone gets sick, they're like, what did we sin? And I'm like, why would you think that? What, don't you know the body creates cells at random, and it's like luck of the draw. It's you didn't do anything. Just like if you walk in a garden and one flower is sick, it's not that the flower did anything. The flower doesn't act. The flower is a flower. It's just luck. It's odds are in favor of one of the flowers getting a mutation that's going to kill it. And I'm like, I don't understand why you're then going from there to saying an action caused the mutation. It's like impossible for me to make this leap. And I see religious people do it all the time, where they're like reckoning with natural events that have, there's not a cosmic force that's doling out, this person is going to get this illness and this person is going to get that illness. That doesn't make sense to me. It's like also painful to me to hear it, because there are sick people who it means someone has intentionally made them sick. But why would you make that connection? It's hard for me to grasp it. I actually like listen to it and I think, why is that how you think? I'm finding it surprising that this is how you think.
There are a lot of connections that are made in Torah learning between the illness of a society and the outcome of that society, more often than not, that it gets destroyed, like the story of Stom, right? Even there have been rabbis who've come out after the Holocaust saying that it is because of the weakness of the Jewish people and how we act toward one another and so on. So I think you're asking, they call it a hekesh or a kesher in Hebrew, right? It seems to me that it's inherent very often to how we think. Just some quick questions about your faith and religiosities today. Do you believe in God? Is there anything you do, let's say on Shabbat, of a Shabbat nature? And is your son sort of on your path as well?
So God plays a role in my life. I do Shabbos every week. I light candles and I pray. And I pray in a very, I believe in expressing our prayers. I believe the action is a positive action. I think it connects us to tradition, to the past, to an ability to sit with a moment. I think there are benefits of prayer, um, and I'm even reluctant to say this because I think a lot of people find this offensive, and I, you know, I wouldn't want to take away what prayer means from other people. I wouldn't want to invalidate what prayer means to other people. That's what it means to me, and I pray in that spirit. So I pray in Yiddish. I'll pray like when I light candles, I will say "B'Shafer Beitach Shik Shulam." Like it sounds so reform and ridiculous when I say it this way, but I just say it from my heart because this ties me not in some kind of newfangled way. It's just like my mother prayed, I pray, our ancestors prayed. Again, I say ancestors, and now I'm sneering at myself because it sounds so hippy dippy. But the point is, I just feel like spending some time in prayer is very meaningful. It doesn't have to be necessarily about ordering from a cosmic source outcomes, although I understand for a lot of people that's what it means. My son, things are for him similarly challenging as to me because his entire extended family is Hasidic.
Nice.
And he's in college. He's in college in Minnesota. He lives a very different life, very different culture. He doesn't have that same intuitive connection to the Hasidic world that I have. He was 4 or 5 when we made the transition. And we often have conversations about this. He's very sensitive to what you were talking about earlier in the podcast about parents pushing religion on you. He feels like if he's just going to say, you give him a plate of kugel and he's going to say, oh my God, this kugel is delicious. Like 5 Hasidic people are going to surround him and say, finally, see, he wants it. Like he is
Right.
sensitive to the fact that he is surrounded by people who are waiting for a cue that he is coming to their side. And that, I think, has been a particular challenge in his own Judaism, which is very sad because it interferes in his ability to fully embrace what Judaism means to him
Does
because
he
he's
tend?
afraid.
I interrupted. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, I think I should clarify. He's totally secular. He's in a secular college. He's totally secular. He knows how to put on tefillin, and he knows some Yiddish, and he knows the traditions. And Hanukkah just ended. We lit the menorah every night, and we sing the Moisir, and we say the brachas. But he's totally secular kid.
Yeah, my son is as well. My son is 19 years old. And early on, someone pointed out to me, Avram, you're pushing religion on him like your father did you, despite the fact that I'm not from anymore. But I wanted him to have some understanding of it. And then I realized that I was doing the wrong thing and I stopped. And he's very, very secular today as well. But what I do is I try to expose him to aspects of Judaism because I think there's beauty within it. I do Daf Yomi every day. I read a page of Talmud every day. I learn it, and sometimes I'll say it aloud, or I'll do it online so he could hear the person who's teaching it, just to get the sprach, just to get the sound of it. And wherever he ends up, I'll be satisfied with that.